Welcome. I'm Thea from Films for the Planet, and today I'm excited to introduce you to the Happen Films production team, Jordan Osman and Annette Wilson, whose solution-oriented films showcase the inspiring stories emerging from across New Zealand and Australia in response to the environmental, social, and economic challenges of our time. The Happen Films YouTube channel has over 400,000 subscribers, and their feature documentaries and shorts have reached 5 million views. So Happen Films is one of the leading storytelling initiatives in the regenerative movement, and I'm super excited to be speaking with this prolific creative team today and to learn more about their journey and where things are headed in the coming year. So starting today, Films for the Planet is screening Together We Grow through January 6th. See the link below in the chat description to sign up to watch this amazing film. So Jordan and Antoinette, welcome. I know we've been talking about getting together for quite a while, so it's finally happening, yay. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you both came together as a team?
Yeah, for sure. So we started making films in 2015, dove right in the deep end with our first feature film, A Simpler Way, which is up on the YouTube channel. That project came about, to cut a bit of a longer story short, I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I got really inspired by watching other documentaries. Things like Food Inc. was a really big one, Michael Moore's documentaries as well, and a few others that really influenced me, and decided, this is a great, art form, and just love the idea of making films myself. So this project came about called A Simpler Way, where 10 of us moved onto a property in Gippsland, east of Melbourne in Australia. And the whole purpose of it was to attempt to live within a one world footprint. So demonstrate different ideas of ways of building, of growing food, of living in community, I guess, to kind of explore what a one planet footprint life might look like. And I was there to make a documentary about it. And Antoinette was one of the people who applied to be a part of the project, one of the other 8 people, was it?
Yeah. One of the other participants. So I came from a background in book publishing. So still storytelling, but I was in an editorial and production management role. So no background in film whatsoever. And of course, George was just starting out as well. So it was quite it was an interesting project because nobody who was taking part in it had ever made a film or been part of making a film. So it was an unusual project, both in the sense of how we came together as a community and how we made the film. I had been on a journey that had taken me into permaculture and was leading me away from working full-time at a desk, which I'd really begun to understand is really bad for us, that sedentary lifestyle. So I was working in a market garden, and I'd done my permaculture design course, and I was looking for, I was looking at living in community and how that might work for me. And so this project just looked like a really exciting thing to be part of. Little did I know it was going to be the most challenging year of my life, and a complete sort of career change. And I ended up coming on board as a co-writer of the documentary, because the 2 people sort of between Jordan and his co-director, they were sort of trying to bring the story together, but neither actually had the experience of doing that. And while I didn't have the experience of doing it in film, I did have the experience of doing it in books, of helping people to bring a story together. So the film came about in a very ad hoc and unusual way, but it's done really well on YouTube. It's I think it's 3.5 million views, and we still get quite a lot of feedback. I've just had a request from a Bulgarian TV station to screen it. We still get a lot of people, a lot of interest in it, but also it sparked Happen Films, and or it sparked us working together in Happen Films. And
and during that year we released a couple of short films as well, and just really loved that format and saw that they were doing well on YouTube. So while that feature film was in production, that took 1.5 years to make, these shorter films were coming out and were resonating with people, and so we thought, let's just keep doing that. And that's what we've been doing for 7, nearly 8 years.
That's awesome. So what I love about Happen Films is that, we definitely need positive stories as an antidote to the negative news, which kind of tends to distract and disempower rather than empower. And solutions are so abundant that you never hear about them. Mainstream narratives really offer a ray of hope or long-term solutions in particular. So, but the stories that you're producing are practical, they're very grounded, and they use common sense. So we really need that. These stories give us a vision for a positive future and a path to resilience and climate adaptation through simple living. And so they give us hope. That's what we need more than ever right now. And so what are some of the topics? There's so many topics that you've covered, a long list. And which topics are you most passionate about? And what would you say is kind of like the overarching narrative? Where is all this headed?
I think we've covered so many topics and there's so many more to cover, because the change that we need to go through affects every level of society and every part of life. It's not like, oh, we just need to change the food system. It's like, no, we need to change housing. We need to change, how we relate to nature. There's so many
economic structure.
Economics. It's we're not going to run out of material to make films about, which is great. But yeah, I don't know, as an overarching theme,
I think, because in one respect, when we started putting those short films out, I think one was about a permaculture farm, another was about a community that was living nearby. There was the
tiny house.
The tiny house. So that was very much sort of part of our world at the time. But we instantly saw the response on YouTube as being one, a hunger for what you're talking about, that solutions focus, which feeds us, and that's why we're interested in making that kind of film. It was, I guess, just a really powerful way of telling stories. That the focusing on the solutions and meeting a really wide audience as we were doing it. So I think, it's hard to know, because our thinking is constantly evolving and developing as we meet people and as we grow as both humans and filmmakers. I feel like the focus is going to stay broad in terms of, how we live, how we structure our economy, how we structure our energy use. We have we believe very strongly that the most important thing that human beings can do at the moment is reduce our use of energy. So we're not super into the tech focus, which, as the environmental movement has a sort of different aspects, doesn't it? And there's a very strong focus on tech as a solution. That doesn't really draw us. We're much more drawn to a kind of a simpler living focus, reducing our energy and really thriving as humanity by doing that, rather than sort of business as usual. So I think our focus will definitely stay in that space, but probably quite broadly in that space.
Yeah, it seems like the simpler living, it always keeps coming back to that particular theme, and it's better for our our hearts, our spirits. It just takes us away from the more complicated issues. I know I've been trying to simplify my life more and more, and it really frees you up. And so, some of for our audience, for people volunteer, I did put a little list together here on some of the topics. And so, if you're interested in permaculture, food forests, organic and biodynamic farming, tiny houses, zero waste living, regenerative agriculture, off the grid living, indigenous food sovereignty, and so much more. Happen Films is covering it all, and the stories are so well produced. Also, the feature length that you mentioned, the simpler way and living the change. Those are both on Films for the Planet. So again, check out the link below to learn more about those. And so, in your opinion, what is the impact of short films? You did kind of allude to this a little bit. versus feature length, and which format do you enjoy the most working in? Filmmaker question.
I think feature films, I guess it's kind of like anything. Before you do it, you really underestimate the amount of work involved. It's like building a house. It's like, oh, that'll take that amount of time, and it's always twice as long. It's similar
And the money.
and the money. Yeah, it's like a feature film's similar in that it's such an undertaking, especially like for Living the Change. It was pretty much just the two of us for the entire project until post-production, when we brought on other people to help out with that process, with the sound mix and things like that. But it was, that was like kind of 2 years of our lives, I think. And we loved it. We did create those feature films, and the length of time that an hour and a half gives you can tell a really in-depth story or a more holistic story, which is the benefit of it, I suppose. You can go deeper. But with the short films, we love those because you can reach a lot of people with them. I think it's probably slightly different audiences, maybe. Like the feature films are great because we can create more of a buzz around them and offer screenings for people to do around the world. That's been one of the best things about making these films, is seeing people host their own screenings in all different countries. And so it's easier to do that, to create an event around something, if you've got a feature film. Sometimes people bundle the short films and do a screening as well. But with the short films, that format online, the having 10 to 15 minute short films, it's easier to get a larger reach of a few million views because they're more accessible. So I suppose there's different audiences, and different stories need different lengths as well. Like the benefit with putting films out on YouTube is that we don't have to restrict ourselves to the format of TV. We need a 22-minute episode or 45-minute block so you can put ads in it. If the story wants to be 8 minutes, it can be. If it wants to be 40, we can make it so. So we feel really lucky that we've got that flexibility and freedom to be like, okay, this story's something we want to tell. How long does it need? What resources and money need to go into it? And we can accommodate it to the story's needs, really.
Yeah, we're in a space that we're operating in a space that I think 20 odd years ago, two people who had no background in film couldn't have done what we're doing, because YouTube offers that platform. Social media offers a platform to share share about the films. So we're operating in a space where we have that flexibility, and we've chosen a route which doesn't include conventional funding. And so we're not beholden to anybody about what kind of films we make, what kind of length they are, nobody's telling us nobody's controlling the message or, has any input. So we're very, very lucky, but that's very much the era that we live in, isn't it? And the other thing that's kind of come out of being able to evolve naturally, organically, there's really that process for us over the last 8 years, nearly 8 years. It's we've been able to kind of find our footing, at our own pace. And I think what's really happened in the last year or so is we've developed we've realized that we've both really drawn to stories that are around 30 to 40 minutes. And the reason for that is they still have a place on YouTube. There's still people are still willing to let their attention span last for that long, because we do live in an era of short attention spans. It's a length that you can still hold an event around, so you can still do a theatre screening or a community hall screening, have a Q&A afterwards, and really create an event out of it, which is harder with a 10-minute film, obviously. And we can go in depth. We can really tell the story of a person or a project. So Together We Grow, which you're showing for the next few days, that was we had made a 30-minute film that we'd loved making, a couple of years prior, and then we had the funds to make this 40-minute film, and it just felt like a really lovely period of time in which to create a story arc. So yeah, we have a sort of a thinking at the moment that we might try and do one or two of those a year as a sort of a thing that we do in future.
Yeah, and you get that in-depth, yeah, like you're saying, you get that in-depth journey of a personal project. But then, yeah, without the huge endeavor of a feature film, like that's part of it as well. Of like, just the energy that goes into creating something that's that long and involved when you're a small team as well. So,
2 years making a feature film, that's pretty good, actually. I mean, I've heard of I've heard of projects that allows, that takes maybe up to 8 years. I've seen them go along that. So you've really got to kind of commit a big part of your life to a feature film, and it's not just the production part of it. It's if you're building a campaign around it, or a take action campaign, or it has a long shelf life, and there's just you have to stick with it for a long time. So it's part of your life. And but so yeah, I mean, is there how do you plan a story ahead of time, or do the stories just kind of emerge organically, or is there like this magic creative process, or that's always changing and being refined? How does it work?
It's a top secret process.
Secret sauce.
Yeah, throw a bit of that. No, like in the beginning, it was very much like, that's interesting. Let's point a camera at it and make a film. There wasn't a whole lot of thought around it, and that worked for a while. But you only got so far without any planning. And then over the years, it's become more and more. Yeah, we do more planning beforehand. We think about it more and choose what the topics more intentionally. And yeah, more recently, like last year and going into this year as well, we're thinking more in advance. Like we're planning next year, 2024's films already, and so we'll have to shoot those this year. But and then also looking at the stories and doing much more research and planning around them, especially for the longer films. Like we've got another 40-minute film that we're working on at the moment. We're still editing it, so not sure how long it'll be yet. But for that film, yeah, we're doing more pre-production than we've ever done, and thinking and research, and I've started sticking notes up on the wall here about the story flow, and there's a lot more thought going into it, which results in a better film. Yeah,
we've been very. We started out very ad hoc and very kind of relaxed, and just we were just. I mean, I wasn't even committed to working in film. It was for at least a couple of years.
It was probably once we released Living the Change that it was probably like, oh, okay, now it's more a serious thing.
Yeah. So and because we've been learning the whole process the whole way. I mean, Jord had considered going to film school and had decided not to go into that much debt. And so he's completely self-taught. He's taught himself everything pretty much off YouTube and off, film courses, studying online. And then, I do things like, when we haven't got a budget, I'll do the sound recording. And George's pretty much taught me from what he learned online. So it's all been very sort of ad hoc. These days, usually we have a budget for a sound recorder, which our sound mixers are always really appreciative of. But it has been quite a relaxed sort of process. But I'm much happier in the space of I'm an organized. I like to be organized. George's pretty kind of go with the flow. So we probably make quite a good team in that respect, and that I've probably brought the more kind of planning sort of side to the whole thing. And I think that's really that's starting to help us streamline the process a bit. But it's funny because you said at the beginning that that we're prolific, and in fact I said to someone the other day, we've got we only put 3 films out this year, and it feels we're sort of feeling like, because we've been building a house, a tiny house on wheels, and it's just been, we've just moved and at the beginning of the year, and it's still been quite sort of and so 3 films. And he said 3 films sounds like quite a lot to me, And yeah, so it's kind of the way we work. And like I say, because of the era we live in, we can be a team of two with mostly secondhand gear, quite a small kit, contracting in, a sound recordist or, the post-production, but at quite a simple level. Like we don't want to grow into a really big,
yeah, we don't want to become a big Hollywood production studio or anything. Like Together We Grow is our most complex film yet. We had 2 weeks of shooting and a $60,000 budget, New Zealand, and we had 2 other crew with us. Yeah, second camera person, sound recordist, and then for post-production we had a custom music score and everything. So it was like it got the full treatment, which was really cool. And it was and just logistically as well, because there's so many people in the film, just planning when to film that person, when to interview them, when to go here. It was like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle for you.
Yeah, a bigger experience for us. So. Yeah. But
without the planning, we wouldn't be able to tell a story like that. If we rocked up and just started filming, it wouldn't come together. It wouldn't. Yeah, you have to plan to tell more complex stories and better stories as well. I think if we didn't do that, we'd hit a limit with the quality. And I think you always have to keep growing, or I get bored, I think.
Right. Well, let's talk about Together We Grow. Again, we're having a virtual screening today through January 9th. If you just are joining us, check out the description in the chat below. And so Together We Grow is currently on Vimeo On Demand, and the film is being released for free in 2023. And so thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to preview it here before it's released. Most of the stories that you've done are about the work of individuals. It seems like in Together We Grow is more about collective action and the resilience of a local community. And so tell us about the film, what are some of the main points, and what was it that really compelled you to make it, and what are you kind of hoping some of the outcomes will be from that film?
I think what drew us to it was precisely that, the fact that it's a community story, and that it's a community hub that's having a really concrete impact in its community. So you can really see the effects of what they're doing, in a community that suffers a lot from lack of good quality food, and just all of the elements of a lower socioeconomic region. And they've made a really beautiful impact, and that interested us both just because you could really see the impact, and also because, to our minds, localization and what that means, which is communities coming together, is a really important solution to managing what's coming, and how we manage the state that we're in, sort of socially and economically, in the world. So we were really interested in it from that perspective. We'd heard, somebody had told us a little bit about it. Initially, when you hear about common unity, you might hear, oh, there's this great space where you can go and learn to sew, and they just sew stuff and knit stuff. They just get together and sew stuff and knit stuff and send it out to the community. Or there's this great space and they go into people's backyards, and they who don't know how to garden, and they produce these amazing gardens, and then they feed those people and the whole community. Or there's this great space you can go to and make art, and it's really collective and collaborative, and so it was just like, you hear all of these different things, but it's all happening in one place, which is quite exceptional. So we were really drawn to that story. And then we met Julia, who kind of was the instigator of it all. And she is a very powerful person, as they often are, the people who bring together projects like that. She had a beautiful story of her own, and something that's really important, because people often say to us, oh, this would be a really cool film for you guys. And it would be, but there's not always a really engaging person at the center of the story, and that's critical. Obviously, you can't tell a story just because it's cool if there's not, if there aren't people who can engage us through their way of telling their story on camera, and who aren't really shy on camera, and who are really shy on camera or who don't want to tell their story to the world, you know. So there's a lot of things that need to come together for us to be able to tell a story. And when we met Julia, we could just see instantly that she was going to be beautiful on camera, which she is. She's an amazing person.
Yeah, I was so inspired. I mean, you know, she evidently she undertook this project while raising 3 kids on her own, and she was successfully fighting the diagnosis of terminal cancer, and you know that really struck a deep chord with me because so many of us are dealing with different kinds of hardships, but yet she really rose to the occasion, and
Yeah.
what she did was phenomenal. You know, in terms of bringing people together and such a cool vibe, and you know they came together in terms of self-sufficiency, but yet you know turned it around yet again to supply food to the greater community, and that was just so huge. And I love all the initiatives, you know, like they have a honey and beekeeping collective, a bicycle recycling program, sewing knitting circles. It's just like whatever anybody wants to do, a local time bank, an urban farm with a kitchen, and a grocery co-op, catering service. And so there's a lot happening, and it's really cool. And I was also really impressed by the Maori leadership, and I'm always impressed by Maori leadership, but how is the kind of Maori culture influencing resilience in related initiatives in New Zealand?
I think that's one thing we loved about the community project was the partnering with local Māori, and I think just overall with the community project, we love their approach of not going into the community and doing things for them, like doing a service, like just coming and providing food. That's the model they're trying to move away from, of importing services to a community. That their approach is to come in alongside and teach people how to grow food and bring communities together and weave networks of resilience and connection, rather than just dropping, importing food and saying, here you go. This is teaching people how to grow their own food, to be more community sufficient, and actually revive those networks that provide true resilience and connection and meet a whole plethora of needs aside from just this person is hungry and needs food. So that was the same with Kokiri Marae and the partnership there, and that happened at the time as people were seeing the film during the pandemic and the lockdowns, which food banks were shutting and people couldn't get access. So this partnership occurred and was able to distribute food in the community. And it was like, I think it's a great template for the future of other challenges that we'll be facing, is like, if you've got these structures sitting there, when it's needed, they can pop up and, team up and get services running.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a very, the way that Julia works, the way that Julia went into that partnership wasn't because, Indigenous cultures, and I mean, hopefully, certainly all of us originally came from an Indigenous culture. I think ultimately, at our core, we want to be part of community, and we want to be connected in our community and have that community resilience. But I think certainly for Māori, that traditional perspective, way of seeing the world, that worldview is much more recent. But it's the consequence of colonisation is that it's been pulled apart. And what people like Teresa, who we feature in the film, are doing is coming back to that core, which she learned from her mother and who learned from her mother, and it's much more it's much more powerful in those communities. It's very you can really feel it. And I think what's great about what Julia's done in that partnership is not to go in and say, here I am, white person coming in to save you. It's how can we work together to strengthen your community, and bring together the resources that I've got as an ally to Māori, to enable that to happen. So it's important the way that she's dealt with that, with working with Māori leaders.
And really noticed healing going on in people's lives by just coming together, as well as just working with the land and growing food. And there's so much positive energy around all of that. And so, we're always so isolated from one another. So it's just definitely what we need now. And we can't really depend on these institutions to be there. So, it's all the more reason to come together. Jordan and Antoinette, you are both an embodiment of your work. You're living the story that you are telling. And you're living the solutions, you're living the change. And I'm so excited about your upcoming projects. And, one that you mentioned was, there's one about community composting. And then the other was a project where you're actually building a tiny house and documenting that. So you must always feel like you're on the set and living the story, right? And so what specifically, just if you'd like to just talk about some things that are coming up in 2023 and beyond, we'll love to hear about it.
Well, we've already shot, or we're partway through shooting films that we hope to release this year, which in total will be 6 films. One that we're really excited about all of them, and sort of similar base that they're all told in. So there's one about zero waste, a couple who are zero waste heroes here in New Zealand. We have told a zero waste story before, but we feel like it's a really, really important subject. And this particular couple have been a guiding force for us in reducing our own sort of waste. But their focus isn't just, the rubbish and recycling. Their focus is how that's connected to climate and everything else, socially, everything else that's happening in the world at the moment. So it's a very kind of holistic story. And so we loved it for that. So that's exciting. We've got one coming out in a couple of months, which is nearly finished, which is a bit of a departure for us because it's focused on fishing, on sustainable fishing. A really lovely fellow who's started fishing sustainably in his locality, only fishing for fish that are in season at the time, and using methods that ensure, so just handline fishing and only fishing to order. So he only fishes what he knows he's sold at the end of the day. So he can never take more than he needs, and all sorts of other ways in which he's kind of challenging that notion of how we fish in the world today. So it's a bit of a departure for us. It feels like quite a different story for us to be telling.
And yeah, we've got the composting story. So that's about a local initiative, which is really cool. It's 40 minutes away. We can in Nelson, we can go in and film this story that's unfolding, which we've never done before. Normally it's like a set shoot period that we stick to because we're traveling somewhere to film it. But here it's like we're filming the story as it's going. We've been shooting since June. Every now and again we go in, do more interviews and stuff. So this will be our 40-minute film for this year, around a community an initiative that takes food waste from businesses and homes in the central city and composts it with volunteers. And there's too much demand for their service. They're too successful, so they are developing a composting machine that'll help accept more food waste and ultimately, empower communities to be involved in this waste stream. So this is a really cool story, and again, there's a beautiful character at the heart of it. So and then we've got the tiny house as well. So we're currently building the house and filming as we go. The film might come out this year or next year because we don't know when the house will be finished. I'm going to bet on next year, but at the moment we're laying the floor in the house and starting on the ceiling today. So it's an exciting and a bit of a weird thing to be filming ourselves. We're much happier behind the camera than in front of it. And is that it?
Yeah, we've got one more. We're researching a film on indigenous seed sovereignty. which we've just started discussion with who we have filmed with in the past about Huaparakori, which is the Māori organics movement. And we're going to be filming with her and other people, again, a longer film this time to really deep dive into that seed sovereignty subject, which are really, it feels really important at the moment. So,
wow, I'm really interested in that topic, seed sovereignty. Can I be part of that project?
cool.
I mean, seriously, I've done a lot of research on it already, and some different projects, and yeah, it's kind of one of my areas super interested in.
Oh, cool. Well,
recruit me.
Yeah, let's have a chat.
You know, it really takes a village of creative talent to produce a film that has global reach, but you guys have done such an amazing job with the two of you, and so to be commended.
If people aren't familiar with our work, the approach we take is pretty much everything we create goes out for free, or everything does eventually. So we've got about 30 films up on YouTube that are all free to watch. And that's part of our mission, because we just want as many people to see them as possible. We don't love putting things behind paywalls, but we do that sometimes for a short period to be able to offer it to festivals and create events around it. It's more of a promotional thing and a bit of income as well, but then that always goes up on YouTube for free. So there's plenty of stuff to watch after you finish watching Together We Grow.
And thanks so much for your work, Taya. You know, helping filmmakers like us share the message of our films, and in that kind of encapsulated, you know, environmental sort of perspective. I think it's really important. It's really important for us to be aligned with people like you, and sharing the message in that way. It makes a big difference to us. So thank you for your work.
You.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're very grassroots too, in small town. So, always bootstrapping.
Yep.
But so you know how that goes. But yeah, it's a really fun space to be in, and like you said, there's no end to the stories that can be told right at this time.
Yep.
So
yeah, and hopeful stories too, inspiring stories, and stories that really, you know, hopefully will kind of contribute to positive change.
Yes, the world needs solution stories. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, Jordan and Antoinette. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll be talking to you again really soon. Seed sovereignty.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for